This is Drew Spence from the Dynamic Universe. I'm presenting a part 2 to the 2D Space Anomalies and Backdrops. Let's take a look at what you get when you unzip the file. We're going to get a folder of 6 spacescapes. And if you remember, the spacescape is basically a scene broken up. So if you look at it, you're going to get all the individual parts of these setups. So you'll get the planet in isolation, the sun in isolation, you'll get a planet surface and several layers that compose the background, which is going to be a black outer space. There'll be a set of stars, usually 1 or 2. This cluster is pretty ubiquitous in all of these, so you're going to get a cluster, and it allows you to mix and match the different pieces of art so that you can make your own spacescapes. You're going to get this sun, and of course, like I showed you last time, they all come in as PNG layers, so you can easily drag and drop and make your own spacescape artwork out of that. So you're going to get a bunch of these, 6 of those. You're going to get 10 space backdrops. These I like a lot. These are just graphically driven space backdrops. These are them in isolation as PNGs. So you're sort of seeing this. This makes great backgrounds for pretty much anything. It doesn't have to be limited to outer space shots, but these are just some great graphics that I have in the package. 10 space graphic objects. These are sometimes meant to be pulled off of the scene. They're PNGs, and they can be layered in your artwork. So you're going to get a bunch of like just interesting texture sort of objects to play with. New in this package is the X-ray objects. This is going to be smaller items that are meant to be pushed into your scene. They can also be cut out from the background. A lot of them are designed that you can just pull one out, and I'll show you that when we actually start to play with it. So we should dive into that and take a look at how this kind of would be used once you got the product. So if you download it, you're going to have a zip file that you can unzip. And once you unzip it, you're going to have all of these folders that I just showed you. Let's take a look at it. It's Space Anomalies 2. If I were to unzip it, I'm going to probably pick a place to start with. Let's start with the Spacescapes. So when I look into the Spacescape folder, I'm going to get all these parts in isolation. And I could build this all to make one particular Spacescape, but let's mix and match just for fun. So I'm going to grab a background, and I pull that, and that gives me basically a basic background of outer space. I could then go into one of the other folders. Let's mix and match. And I'm going to go into the Spacescapes. Let's go into the green Sharon planet. Sharon 12 Major. It has in it a nebula. It has a planet. It's got stars, and it's got a sun. So we're going to basically grab a few of these and drag and drop them in. So I've brought in a planet. There I am, I'm placing it in my Photoshop, and this product works with anything that supports layers. I'm gonna grab a surface planet, and I've brought that in. So now I've got a surface of a planet mixed with my background, outer space, and I think I'll stop there for that one. So that's 2 from this one. Let's go to the third. Let's just jump across to the Omicron. This is, okay, this is interesting. It has a planet with a ring. I know there's a few ring ones in this release. Has some ring planets. So the ring one, okay, we'll probably have to move the ring planet either out the way or behind the other. So you kind of do need that to go behind the surface, because as you can see, you don't want the ring sort of being on top. This is the near planet, that's the far, so I'm just reordering them. And of course, you can always resize things, move them around. So I'm going to take this planet, I'm going to shrink it down some and move it a bit in the distance so it no longer eats up so much of the real estate, and I move that into the background. So I have a pretty quick and decent space thing. If I had a spaceship I could put in front of it, or if this was just going to be a title, a space station could go here, or I could just, you know, have a night scene and take out the surface and just let the planet be, you know, the planet up in the sky. I could do the same thing with the sun, just put it up in space, but you get the idea. Let's take a look at what else we have to play with. Aside from the Spacescapes, we also have graphic backdrops. This is pretty interesting. We're just going to grab one of these. Maybe we'll grab the yellow cosmic spear. That sounds pretty crazy. We'll grab that, and I'll drag that in, and it gives me a really interesting backdrop that eats up everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to resize this for this one, because we're not going to use it as a graphic. We're going to use it as a full background. So I'm going to move it to the back. And now I've sort of changed the way space works. Let's lighten it up a bit, right? Or I could put the planet behind it. Maybe I'll take the small planet and move it behind the cloud. Like I said, you're gonna have choices to this, that of what you want to do, but for now we'll leave the planet on top. We'll make this some sort of interesting background, and I'll just lessen it so it doesn't take up, you know, the entire thing. Maybe the ring planet is also eating up a little bit too much real estate, and it's a little bit too prominent of a feature not to be centered. But of course, you know, once I get the parts interacting and I begin to move things around, now you sort of see the effect of this this sort of graphic now looks like it's actually interacting with the planet. And of course we could swap it out and let this take over this planet, but for now, you know, there's just a lot of places you can go and a lot of options that you can do once you begin to actually start messing around and combining. And of course, obviously, the more of these you get, the more options you have to mix and match. So let's take a look. Let's back up a bit. Let's take a look at a graphic object. So this is these are small objects meant to be brought in and just add flavor. So we're gonna grab this flare. We'll just grab the first random flare that we have in it. I bring the flare in, and we've got this doodad burst of light. I throw that in my scene, and of course, depending on where I place it, it decides what it is. So we'll move it back behind everything, and now it just becomes an interesting graphic. It looks good placed here. It looks pretty good placed there, like maybe this is obscuring the sun on this side, or if it's this side, it says that it's closer because you're seeing the light being cast around the planet. So I'm going to leave it there and let it just be a little bit of energy off of that planet. And, you know, you've got many of these to choose from. Let's then jump to our last folder, which is the graphic objects. I love this one. Excuse me, X-ray objects. I love this one. These are really nice. I'm going to grab the, let's see. I'm going to grab the ring eyelet. And that's a circle. I was playing with that for the actual promo artwork. And I love this ring. And I feel like it just looks great no matter what I do with this ring. It looks great. Like just placing it there in 2 seconds, and I feel like I have something that I really like a lot. So I love the ring, this ring thing. Like I said, just anywhere you place it, it looks awesome, and it has some sort of weird effect that you're not really sure what it is. It just looks cool. But I like it there on the planet surface. And of course, since this is Photoshop, you could change the color. You could make it, you know, you could change the tint of it. If I want it to be a little bit reddish, I would go in. I'm going to rasterize this smart object. And I'm just going to play with the color of it. So I'm going to play with the color of it. I want to make it a little bit more red. So I'm going to turn up the red. Give it a little bit yellow. And my ring's a little bit different. What are we getting here? I mean, it's just the actual white glow part is changing. So we're happy, you know, because we're picking the midtones. If I pick the highlights, I could do the same thing again and keep increasing it. You know, this is more orangish because I'm going with the red and the yellow. But this is all, you know, this is stuff that's like Photoshop basic stuff. Nothing that's complicated or ultra, you know, intensive. This is just, you know, cool flavorings to do. If I want to grab something a little bit... All right, let's show you something isolated. Before I do extreme, let's go with isolated. So I have this, which is called glitch anomaly things. There's light bursts, ringworms. These are just cool little artifact type objects. So what I normally would do is open up the two documents side by side. So I would actually open up this this one, and I would actually pull pieces from one and place them in the other. So I wouldn't always just drag and drop. There's a lot of ways to do it because it's Photoshop. I could grab the whole thing and bring it over and delete what I don't like. I could just copy and paste to new the piece that I do like, or I could just do it with a selection. And I say, okay, I like this shape here, so I'm gonna grab this shape by itself, and I'm gonna basically take it from this piece to this piece. And now I brought in this like weird cluster sort of object that I have in my scene now, which I could also play and move around and decide where I want to place it. What do I want to make it? And I could even enhance this little plumage thing happening and place it behind just enough. I get to decide how far back I want to place. If I place it way in the back behind the flares and everything else, it looks almost like a solar flare that I could use this for. Give it a little bit more, it's almost like the planet is radiating something from it. So you get to play with all these different shapes. Let's do something else bigger. We have this one. Let's take a look. This is the grid yellow flower one. This is a very cool shape. that we can bring in. So again, just before I close this out, you can grab any of these. They come in different colors, and they just become little enhancers. There's some that look like little starbursts. You have a lot of variety with these, and also you can stretch them, transform them, do almost anything with them, play with the transparency, the color, warp them. So they're kind of versatile, just nice building blocks to play with that you can sort of have fun playing with. So I'm going to bring the grid in. I'm going to drag the grid on top, because I know this is a larger effect, that I'm actually not going to leave it as a small burst. As you saw on the last one that I did, when I left it as a small burst, I erased around the area I didn't need. But in this particular case, I'm going to actually use it, scale it up, and because these are high resolution images to begin with, we're working in a large size, they're going to look okay and just be fine being scaled up. So now I have this crazy light burst. I could decide, where do I want to put it? Do I want it to be anything, or do I want just a general background of interest? And I might slide it behind everything, so now it dulls the yellow because I placed it behind the cosmic sphere level, which is the one that I had here. That was that object. So you see what we can really change the tone rather quickly, and I have this interesting thing going on behind it. And, it says grid because it does look very scientific, gridded, geometry type stuff happening here. So I kind of like that too. But, these are just options you have. Of course, you could consider this all overkill, or if you're overdoing it. But this is pretty cool. There's a lot of cool things you can do. So this package is Space Anomalies Part 2. Following up behind Part 1, and the newest addition is the X-ray objects, which will be fun to play with. There's a README that explains everything, has links to it. The free sampler package, which also goes out on my new ArtStation account, or does it? It's also on the payloads. You should be able to get it from my Deviant Art page. You could pick up the free ones if you're not ready, to experience the full package. You can get a nice sampler, which has a little bit of everything in it, and it'll get you going. And you can get a lot of mileage out of the free package. And the purpose really isn't to have, the sampler versus the full package. The full package is more so if you want to support the dynamic universe. And a lot of things that I do, the reason why the samplers are so heavily stocked is that it's really about, support me if you want to. And that's why a lot of this stuff, we don't have a lot of watermarks in a lot of my stuff, because, it's artist to artist, it's person to person, and that's what it's about. So at the end of the day, if you didn't know, I do the Digital Art Live magazine webinar series about making comics using CGI. It's also about post work, where after you've done your rendered image, how do we add effects and enhance? I've got some interesting courses coming up doing that. That's on the Digital Live magazine website. It's also on Digital Art Live inside the Daz store. That's DAZ. You'll find links to everything inside the description. Speaking of subscriptions, you can subscribe to this. I also have a Patreon if you want to support the Dynamic Universe and you like this kind of content. I'm the guy that made the 4-6 comic series and also Killer Butterfly. That's also it. So I will see everyone. Thank you for checking out this package. I will see you guys, and happy rendering.